Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Logical Nonsense Podcast. Today, we have a Boss album review as well as some projects to be looking forward to in the hip hop world. I'm excited to get into it. Boss finally dropped an album. I can't remember the last time he dropped an album. Obviously, he's had some interesting projects. I believe it's called Milky Way. We got the screen up here. Yeah, we got Milky Way in 2018. I think that was his last album, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been about 5 years. Boss is an interesting artist for Dreamville. I think Dreamville did a great job. He was their first ever signee, which I did not know when I was looking up him. And I've always been impressed with his flows and some of that, but excited to get into it. This project, I think he put some time into it for sure. And the 5 year wait was noticed. So let's hop right into it. Starting off first with Light of My Soul. I think the sample in this song sets kind of the tone. Definitely more of a melodic, maybe even melancholy feel to the album. The bass gets kind of brought in nicely. And he has this great flow. He's always had great flow, honestly. I think it's one of his biggest strengths. I mean, he has great lyrics. His storytelling in this is great. I think he talks about forgiving people for their greed. Talks about a little bit of, kind of the talk about like he's been there before. I have been in your shoes and I understand why. I think he kind of puts his perspective on, I've been there before, but bro, you kind of gotta grow up. So I think it's kind of a cool introspective into his mind. Great start to the album. And then going into Black Jedi, more melodic song. It's got a slower start. The rapping verse goes really hard. I think it's a solid song, but there's nothing too special about this song to me. I think it's fine, but there's it's kind of a filler song in a lot of ways for me. And then going into Choppa's very catchy song. I think it's got dope ass production. The Chop sample is super dope in the back. That's cool. I think there's kind of a laid back bass that was brought in, which you'll see a lot in the production throughout this album. That kind of chill, more calming bass than we're used to in the rap and hip hop world. So that was kind of cool. Like I said, the melody's super catchy and a nice compliment to the production, the chemistry within the production and his voice and the lyrics. The melodies are really nice. I think he has a super cool singing voice in this as well. Does a good job of matching the energy and the layered production kind of brings you on a listening experience. He also brings in the helicopters at the end, which is a cool touch. I just think this was super executed song, super laid back, kind of a late at night song, when you're on a drive. I was really impressed by this song. It's one of my favorite on the albums. Then going to Home Alone featuring J. Cole, I think this is the better, of the 2 J. Cole songs on this album. J. Cole spits on this dope ass beat, and his flow is super freaking good. I mean, he matches the energy of Boss and his flow. He brings in some vocals, J. Cole does, and he also switches up the flow, and it's just beautiful. J. Cole is just a beautiful, beautiful hip hop artist, and he's so much fun to listen to. Boss speeds up his flow, like I said, matches the energy, the production, super high pace. The it's the production is super high pace, but it kind of ties back into the rest of the album with that more melancholy undertone and I love it. I just think it was super well executed, another great song, very great start to the album. And then we go to Risk. I think this sounds like a classic Boss song. You can hear in Boss kind of his, I guess, Islander influence. There's a lot of tropical vibes to a lot of the songs that he makes, especially some of the songs that he tries to go after that are, I would say, more of his hit songs. They're very chill, laid back, but they kind of have an island feel to them, and I think it's extremely enjoyable song to listen to. The echoed verse in this also adds to the kind of melancholy effect that I was talking about earlier. There's a cool guitar solo within this, and I love that kind of stuff. I think when you bring in, unique things to a hip hop songs, it's super cool because I think as hip hop fans, we like seeing some of that uniqueness to the album, and I think this is a song that was unique to this album, and I think it's another banger on the album. Bass drop at the end of the song, I think adds to the listening experience. It was just a very, very solid song. Going to Decent, but featuring Amare. More melodic song. It has pretty vocals. Production is pretty fire. I think the production throughout this is fire. I think Dreamville very rarely has poorly executed production songs. I just think they're at a different level right now, with their production skills. I I'm gonna say it though. I think the feature is kind of whack. It's Not a I don't know, it's kind of a whispery, high-pitched feature that I just wasn't a fan of. Some people might disagree with that. I just don't think she adds a lot to this. It literally made my face grimace when I heard it. I was like, "What the fuck?" I don't know if they thought this would be a cool, unique touch, especially to the look, tone, and feel of this album, but I honestly felt like yes, it matches the story of the song, the production, but she kind of ruined this song for me. I actually think it would have been better if he had brought in either a different feature or just stayed with himself. But I do think, this was a layered song, and I understand the wanting to expand, but this just didn't execute very well, in my opinion. Ho Chi Minh, this is probably my favorite song on the album. The only complaint I have with it is that it's too short. The flow is fucking ridiculous. It's just beautiful, super passionate. He spits super hard, and I think the coolest part is he has the spitting ability, he has the flows, he has everything that would make a song great, but he also tells this beautiful story, and I just wish I had more. I wish this was a 4-minute song, and he just did it also, and I mean, he has beautiful self-reflection, talking about his journey, super vulnerable, and it's just too short. I think he could have gone further into that realm, and the song would have been damn near perfect. 179 Delhi, yeah, it kinda matches the same flow as Ho Chi Minh at first, and then it switches up. It's more futuristic sounding beat, which is much different than the rest of the production on this album. It's not a bad song, I just think there's better on this album. I think I appreciate the ability to switch up the sound, but I just don't know if it necessarily tied back to the album, which I think, like, that's the thing, like, I'm okay with you experimenting, I'm okay with you, having different sounding beats and that kind of thing, but, like, have, like, some sort of tie back into the album, and I just didn't think this one did a very good job of that. Going to Passport Bros. Honestly, I know this is the single that released quite a while ago in the summer and more Islander vibe again, but I just don't think this really fits on this album track list, especially considering everything, like, in the album, content-wise, production, lyrics, everything. I think this feels much more like a pop song, and it kind of felt out of place, especially on the way of the flow of the album. Going to Testify featuring Cha Cha, it's a love song, it's got more of another tropical feeling, which is kinda cool that he went 2 tropical songs in a row, but, I think, it's much more poppy, and I think that's where he tried to fit in Passport Bros. Is like, "Oh, we're gonna go in this direction," and kinda turn. Again, I'm more on the side of, like, that's cool if you wanna go that direction, but, you know, I just don't know if it fits. I will say though, Cha Cha, she adds a cool element to the song. I don't mind this song. I think she has a cool voice. I think they have cool chemistry together. But it again wasn't like my favorite by any means or what I consider one of the best on the album. U-Turn featuring Blackie and ASAP Ferg. Blackie reminds me of a higher pitch mix of, like, Ray Shremmerd and Sway Lee, which was interesting. I like both of them, but he adds kind of a cool texture to it. I feel like we could have gotten a much cooler verse from A$AP Ferg at the end. It was very underwhelming and honestly kind of weird. I didn't really enjoy the electric guitar getting thrown in there. I don't know, this song kinda took a weird turn. I think it had great start to it and ended really weird. I feel like this could have been executed a little better compared to some of the other songs that were executed on this album. Paper Cuts, I'm gonna say it, I think there's a catchy chorus. I like the slower vibe, but I just feel like it was kind of underwhelming and lacked emotion a little bit. Definitely not the best execution from Cole we've ever heard, but a Cole bad verse is better than an average rapper's good verse. So I would just like to put that out there. But from expectations, I've heard better and I've liked better. So overall, underwhelming song, not my favorite. I think it is a vibe and like you could definitely listen to it, but it's not my favorite by any means. Diamonds. This is a cool song. It has a cool melody. It's very um has this kind of feeling of hope. It's he's not really caring or talking about he doesn't really care in this song. He talks about, giving himself, self-hype. He has a really cool message in this song of, like hype yourself up, man. Like, give yourself that credit and he did a good job of relaying that message. And then um he goes into Yao Ming and I think the Yao Ming intro is kind of hilarious. But it's also really awkward sounding. I didn't expect him to use that as like the chorus or not the chorus, but like the I guess the thing that he says throughout the verse. It's just weird. I don't know, like, it's such a random thing to say, and it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't fit, and I think the song is fine, like, the verse is super smooth, like, that's the best way to describe it, and he's moving through his lyrics like butter, but, the chorus is dope. I just think the Yao Ming was a weird choice on this song. Doctor Oblivion reminds me of a Jack Johnson intro, and then he has this fast as fuck flow, and the bass comes in and it's choppy and it kind of all over the place, and you've kind of on this journey, but but it's definitely a head bopper, and I could see where it's a little too like there's a little too much happening, but I don't mind it, but I definitely could see where other people could get, like, overwhelmed by everything that's going on, and his flow goes fucking crazy, man. He has some serious talent, and you can see it in the song. And it kinda matches the vibe of the production, but again, it's a little overwhelming at times. Cardam, I don't know, it's like another Islander song, and honestly, I've said that a lot in this album, so you could go back and say, like, "Oh, like, this album is tying back to that Jamaican vibe," but it's like you have your Jamaican Island vibe song, and then you have, like, melancholy songs. So I don't know what you think about that, but Cardam, like I said, vacation song, see a cool perspective on Boss's view on world issues, which is kinda cool. It's got, like, a news headline outro, which I always love, and then, the final song, "Wait on Me," it's got beautiful vocals, and I think it's a good outro song. Overall, this album was pretty solid. Going to our logic method of rating this album, which is lyrics, on point production. I think it was glowing flows. I'm gonna go to glorious. I think that makes more sense. I don't know. I think it makes. I don't know. There's not a great G word. I would just like to put that out, and then we've got um immediate hits, and finally content matter. So first, starting off with lyrics, I think it was very focused. He hit on the agenda. He talks about self-reflection. He talks about world issues. Talks about self-hype. It's definitely a self-reflection journey, and I love those types of albums. I think he did a great job. He has great perspectives on love, himself, how he can improve, how others can improve, world issues. I think his duality in his pen game and showing so much, but then also tying it all together and kinda giving his perspective, in different ways too of rapping, and expressing it, through his flows and through that. Obviously, that's not what I'm rating. I'm rating the actual lyrical matter, which is solid, and I think it probably could have gone more in depth, honestly. I think he kind of not dabbled, that's not the right word for it, but I think he could have even drilled harder into that world. I think it's still one of the best lyrical albums on the year. I'm gonna give it an 8.4 out of 10. For on point production, I think it's one of the best listening experiences on the year, honestly. I think Utopia and some others probably beat it. You know, JPEG Mafia's album also probably beats it. There's some others that probably beat it, but it's still really, really interesting, intriguing, layered, very well executed production-wise album. I enjoyed all the different instruments brought into this, the electric guitars and the pianos and just everything that was brought into it, the different techniques that were used, chopped, the bass drops, everything, super diverse. There's also sounds of island music. Probably my favorite part to listen to on the album, honestly, is the production, just because it's such a listening experience. I'm gonna give it an 8.9 out of 10. Glorious flows. Boss showed his diversity in his flows in this album, and it was incredible to listen to. Super fun to listen to. Super underrated rapper, honestly. Nobody really talks about Boss as this great, great rapper, but I think in this album, he showed again, like, he should be talked about more. Milky Way was another great album, and I think this album, We Only Talk Shit About Real Shit When We're Fucked Up, is a great album too. So immediate hits to be an everyday listener to an everyday listener to a mainstream listener. I don't think there are necessarily a whole lot of hits on this album, especially, last album he had Tribe, um Boca Raton. I don't think there is that kind of song on this album. However, I do think to somebody who enjoys self-reflection music and that kind of thing, this album is great for that. And I think, it's super vulnerable, super real. It's not like upbeat or it's not on trend. He wasn't trying to like super hardly experiment by any means. But it's a vibe. I think it's a fun album to listen to. And I think it's gonna be perceived well on the hip hop heads market. Hip they'll appreciate this body of work, but I don't really see the mainstream audience necessarily agreeing with this take that it was like this great, great album by any means. So for that, I will give it a lower ranking of a 6.8 out of 10, even though like I don't want to do that. I just don't think in terms of hits, there's necessarily like a song where I'm like, this is a fucking banger. This is something I'll put on in the car that's very safe to play. Um, I think Boss is a safe artist to play. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying like I don't think people are gonna like easily recognize songs off this album. Content matter, face value of the overall. So I didn't really explain this, but like really content matter to me is like the face value of the overall album, the value of each song. Poses the question, is this good musical content? And I think the execution from lyrics mixed in with production, how each song came out was solid. Um, as with most albums, there were some duds. There's some tweaks needed. There's some improvements, but I think it's an 8 out of 10. Like I said, he brought in vulnerability, brought in production, and they, had good chemistry together. Um, the production really boosts the content matter a lot for me. I may be biased, but when it comes to artists self-reflecting, I think Boss did it well. I think it boosts, in my opinion, when you can execute that well, because it's not always easy to do. A lot of people try to do it, and it's not always well executed. I think he did a good job. Songs like Yao Ming and U-Turn kind of take this category down for me. I think those could have been better executed, and the content matter isn't like super great for me. Honestly, even a song like Paper Cuts, with the pre-existing expectations of J. Cole and Boss together, kind of bring it down. I think again, another song could have been executed better, but I think overall this is one of the best albums on the year. That's not saying much, but it is something to be said. I think it's 8.2 out of 10, which is the average of those 5. Make sure to go listen to Boss and his new album. It's a great album if you are into kind of, I don't know if underground rapper is the word for it, because I think he's more well known than some people may think, but, to the everyday listener, I don't know if he is easily recognizable, so make sure to go listen to it. Definitely a great album. Self-reflection, brings you on a journey, listening experience, so I've been vibing with it for the last couple weeks, and I'm excited to continue to bump it on my own playlist. Going to some future projects, you know, there's been talk about Kanye dropping with Ty Dolla Sign, which is an interesting collaboration in itself. I'm not a huge fan of Ty Dolla Sign. I just think I don't know, he's okay. He's more melodic rapper, and I feel like I always know what to expect from him. He has some great verses. I think his verse on Cinderella is great, but overall, I think he's kind of an average rapper. He's nothing special to me, at least, which might be a bold take, bold takes on the logical nonsense. But I think uh, we'll see what comes of it. Ye is doing his thing, and hopefully we get a good album. Donda was pretty well executed. Donda 2 was rushed, and obviously wasn't fully released to the public. Um, there's been some snippets of the Everybody clip, which is, another Yay sample flip that could be legendary. Seen that before. And then we also have Kid Cudi coming out with the same day. I don't know if that's like a little bit of beef stuff. It sucks because Ye and Cudi used to be really good friends, but I don't know. We'll see what comes of it. All right, and then going to our fashion segment, we've got the Jason Tatum unveiling his second signature Jordan shoe. It's interesting. It's got the texture pods for more grip, and I understand this one, by the uh, pinky toe. I guess that would be, that makes sense when you're cutting. You kind of flail out, but the one up here doesn't really make sense to me. I've never in my lifetime used up near my ankle grip on the court, so that one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I'm sure it's just a look. I mean, it's an okay shoe. Um, I think they tried a little too hard with the texture pods and being different, but, for 125, I think it's fine. The colorways they've come out with so far are a little exotic, a little bright, um, but, at least they're trying something, I guess, but like I said, 125, not a bad price at all, and then we've got the Nocta Nike Air Zoom drives, very plain shoe. Once again, I'm not a big fan of Nocta. I'm gonna be honest. I just don't think a lot of cool things have come out of there. I think the only thing that's come out of there that was cool is the Tech Fleece. So, um, be sure to check those out. And it's kind of all I've got for today. Shorter episode. I am on vacation, so I won't be coming out with a whole lot, but make sure to check it out. Appreciate everyone that's been listening. And yeah,